All right, good morning. I want to welcome everyone to our 15-minute Career Intelligence Sports Industry Edition. And I'm very excited about the two gentlemen that I have on the call today. One has been in the business for quite a long time, not to date him, but he has a lot of experience. And one has been in the business not quite as long, but has certainly picked up his fair share of experience as well. And so just wanted to bring them on to talk a little bit about their respective career journeys and to share any insights that may be helpful to students and other job seekers. And so we have Ryan Koerner, who's the Premium Service Manager for AEG Staples Center. So thank you, Ryan, and welcome. And then Blain Skinner is the principal for Blain Skinner Consulting. And Blain had been with the Lakers. His former position was with the Lakers in corporate partnerships, corporate sponsorships, and where Blain spent, I want to say, 30 plus years with the Lakers. And so as executive director of the corporate partnerships, Blain has obviously picked up a lot of experience, has seen a lot of things. And so he's gonna have much, he has much that he can share as well. So wanted just to ask Ryan and Blain, first of all, just to give us a little intro, just to talk a little bit about your job role and your key responsibilities high level. So Ryan, let's start with you.
Thank you, Ron, first of all, for having me on here today. As you mentioned earlier, Premium Service Manager with Staples Center and AEG. The primary role and responsibilities for me. So we act as the first face in the door for all of our large clients, especially in the business space across Staples Center for the Lakers, the Kings, the Clippers, as well as the Sparks when they will play inside Staples Center in a usual calendar year. Of course, this calendar year is a little different. But our products across the building that will obviously sell and service throughout all of the seasons across 250 to 300 events in Staples Center. We'll deal specifically a lot with our high-end businesses all throughout the greater Los Angeles on our suite levels. On our premium seating level, which is if you could consider the court, the second level of seating inside Staples, as well as all of our hospitality areas and lounges that you'll see, whether it's on broadcast or if you're ever inside the arena. All of those spaces we fully sell and fully service throughout the calendar year.
Hey, great. Thank you, Ryan. And Blain, how about you?
Sure. And I echo Ryan's words. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and asked me to join today's panel. And I started with the organization called California Sports that owned and operated the Lakers, the Kings, the Forum, and a lot of the sports properties at the Forum at the time. And I started in the public relations department, which led to a game night job, which led to a part-time job that led to a full-time job after I graduated. And I worked in public relations at the Forum for about 4 years, and I handled all the public relations duties for all the special events. So all the touring shows like the Globetrotters, the Ice Capades, the rodeo, the circus, and also handled boxing and tennis. So I worked a lot of hours. I also worked game nights for Lakers, so it seemed like I was at the Forum probably 4 to 5 times a night per week. So I spent many hours there. Transitioned over to corporate partnerships, which is a fancy way of saying selling sponsorships. So I worked with a lot of the Lakers sponsors throughout the years. Retired from the organization last November after 38 seasons. Ergo the 38 uniform that I have behind me. And I started my own consulting company. Ergo the sign behind me, my head, Blain Skinner Consulting. And I'm now, I guess my main role would be working with venues and finding solutions, whether it be 5G or Wi-Fi solutions. And I'm also representing a company called Restore Air, which is an air purifying company, which is much needed these days in the post-COVID-19 world. So been engaging with a lot of sports teams and venues on the possibility of those venues installing an air purification system.
Great, great. Thank you. And then one thing I have to say about Blain too is Blain and I go back a little ways, and he's always been very supportive of my efforts to better acquaint young people with career opportunities in sports too. So certainly just wanted to give a shout out to you, Blain, for that. So next I wanted to ask the two of you to share one or two or just some important lessons from your respective career experiences. And so Ryan, if you could go ahead and go first.
Sure, I would be happy to. I think the first lesson would be to never really close your mind or be short-sighted, especially if you were to put the senior in college version of myself talking to me specifically right now today. He wouldn't believe me now versus me then if I were to say you're going to start your career in New York and then you're immediately going to move out to Los Angeles and still work in the sports industry. So I believe, never leave a stone unturned. Always try to find those doors that are open and also create those avenues for extra doorways. You never want to just solely focus in on one thing or put all your eggs in one basket. It's incredible to think, at least being in the industry now, approaching 5 years here in September, which will be great. But I never would have imagined the instant success and opportunities that came my way unless I, held to that belief specifically as it pertains to, just like I said, leaving no stone unturned.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Blain, how about you?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. One would be accept your mistakes, take ownership of your mistakes. Let's face it, we all make mistakes. And if you take responsibility for them, it does two things. Number one, it diffuses the situation, which I found really fascinating. Once you accept blame, then it pretty much stops the situation in its tracks. And then people also respect you if you take responsibility for your mistakes. So it actually works in your favor. The other thing is hard work. Nothing beats hard work. But if you're in an industry that you really enjoy, the work will come easy and you won't mind working the extra hours or working hard because you're passionate about what you're doing and it comes naturally. So I had, mentioned earlier, working so many nights per week at the Forum during different events. But I really didn't mind doing it because I was having the time of my life. So, but the bottom line is nothing, absolutely nothing beats hard work.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So next I wanted to ask you about some of the folks in your life who've influenced you. And so obviously both of you in your respective journeys had people who were probably guiding you or providing some advice. And so I wanted to ask you to share one or two key people who have influenced your career. And Blain, we'll start with you.
Sure. So growing up as a kid, I was a Laker fan. And so I guess in my teen years, the Lakers had a pretty special team that won 33 games in a row. And one particular gentleman on that team who's now they call him the logo because his silhouette is taken from a picture, and it's Jerry West. And Jerry West was an idol of mine growing up, and I really revered the man. And then when I started working for the organization, it was unbelievable not only to meet Jerry West, but to get to know him on a personal level. And he was a great influence on me. I always say that, oftentimes your heroes, you put them on such a high pedestal that they can never meet up to your expectations. But I can honestly say Jerry West actually exceeded my expectations.
That's cool.
He's a better person than I thought he could ever possibly be.
That's amazing too. And I just think back, some of the people that, that we've all admired, and sometimes you meet these people and they're not quite who you hope they would be too. So it's great to meet somebody who not only lives with those expectations, but actually exceeds them as well. All right. So Ryan, how about you?
For someone of my age of 26 who's wanted to always is be in the sports industry, I can't, to Blain's point, pinpoint one specific, let's say, athlete, as I know this is something I've always wanted to work in, which has been a little bit of a motivational factor on its own. I would say once I really got started in the industry and found my stride, back in New York, and it's the same reason why I'm out here in Los Angeles, some 3 years later. My first direct boss, once I moved from my inside sales career with the New York Mets over to the New York Islanders with Brooklyn Sports Event Center, Emmanuel Jacobo. He was the first that really saw the potential in me that I think others did not. So I extremely valued the fact that he recognized potentially a little bit of himself in me. And I think when you find a mentor like that, or someone that will influence your career like that, you want to do your absolute best to befriend and stay with that person as long as you can, because from day one, like I did, that Manny had not only my best interests in mind as a professional, but even in our interview room when I was interviewing for a job on his team, I could feel that he cared about me as a person, which I think are qualities you don't find in every manager or role model in our industry, in the sports world, or even I would say in life. So the fact that I was able to find those so quickly in my career with one singular person who's, like I mentioned, brought me out here to Los Angeles as well, I think it speaks volumes to his character. And to that point, of that would be someone that's extremely influenced my career.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So next, I wanted to ask each of you if you could share one very memorable, at least one very memorable or defining moment in your career. And so, Blain, you've experienced a lot, and I'm sure you've had probably multiple moments very memorable. But if you could share maybe one or possibly two.
Sure. If I had to say just one, and boy, there's a lot to choose from. But if I had to say just one, it would have to be the Wish Lakers partnership. The NBA allowed teams to sell a jersey patch with a corporate logo on the actual jersey. And I played a pretty significant role in negotiating the jersey patch deal between Wish and the Lakers. And that was the biggest partnership deal I was ever involved in terms of dollars. It was a significant investment on part of Wish. But even the other night, watching the Laker game and seeing LeBron and Anthony Davis and the rest of the players running up and down the court, wearing a jersey that has the Wish logo, and knowing that I played a key role in seeing that come to fruition, I would say it was probably the defining moment of my career.
Great. Ryan, how about you?
I'll have two, I guess. I would think for me, the first one would be back in New York. So did spend the latter and majority so far of my young career working in New York City. Was able to see a lot of success and a lot of turmoil, especially as the industry does have it a lot. But one poignant memory I have from my time in New York, specifically with the Islanders, was just seeing the community really latch onto the team, and to that extent, being, like I mentioned earlier here, you recognize that you are the first face that they will potentially think of moving forward. So it really does speak volume to how much trust is placed upon you as someone that works in the day-to-day world of sports, because I never would think, and I'm sure Blain can echo this as well in his years in the sports world, sometimes some people will be triggered to thinking of you as opposed to just thinking of the team, a player, a specific person. So it is interesting to see how interwoven behind the scenes you really are, but how on the forefront you really can be when it comes to people's perspective. One more recently, and I think really will still be the defining moment in my career for some time, would have been actually this past January 26th, when we unfortunately had the helicopter accident with Kobe and Gianna Bryant. Being someone who is not a native Angelino. I obviously respected and adored Kobe as an athlete, as a fan, but I didn't grow up with him to where I'd compare him to my hero or Superman, like a lot of my colleagues, as well as a lot of people here in the greater LA area do. But I can remember that day was a day like any other because we were hosting the Grammys, which is something that AEG will run. So that was inside Staples Center. So leading up to the Grammys, which of course is a celebration of music, it was a very sombering mood. It was a very tough day. And it was very difficult personally and professionally to, put that hat on of forgetting what was going on outside the arena and really just focusing in on the event. Of course, the Grammys did what the Grammys usually do, and they paid tribute to Kobe and addressed that before even beginning the celebration for the night. And as that night continued to go on, it was extremely interesting to see how everyone was able, with the thought in mind of Kobe, Gianna, and the others that unfortunately did pass away, that we were able to not only celebrate life then, but continued that for just about a month at the arena. Of course, you saw the memorial that was outside of LA Live. That first Laker game back was especially touching. I'll never forget where I was when LeBron, pretty much said, "I'm going to do this from the heart." He had a speech written up and he just dropped that piece of paper on center court. And then it all led up to the celebration of life later in February. I was not there for that specific event. I was ready to move on from what had happened, but I know a lot of people that were at the celebration of life as I watched it on TV unfold. So many memories, so many emotions attached to, let's say, that month and a half. And being someone that's been in Los Angeles now here for about 10 months, I wouldn't feel as closely connected to this town and to this city and Staples Center if I wasn't a part of that singular moment. And I think with that singular moment, my heart's with the arena, and my heart will always be with the arena in the town as we go through not only the rest of this season that's restarted as of Thursday, but hopefully for years to come, especially after what had happened on January 26th.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ryan. It's a very, very powerful moment, or say moment to share. A very impactful time, for our Los Angeles family. Well, Ryan Koerner, Blain Skinner, I both appreciate you both for taking time out to share some lessons from your personal journeys and just some great advice for folks to be able to take away. And so definitely wish you well, continued success, and look forward to connecting again soon. Okay, take care.
All right. Thank you very much, Ron.
Certainly.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Blain. Great to meet both of you, gentlemen.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay,
Take
bye-bye
care.
now. So we're going to wrap up, and so just want to ask you both just real quick, and this is going to be sort of a two-parter. Just if you could just share one thing that you think people should know about you, and then secondly, any final words of advice, for students or other job seekers who want to break into the industry. And Blain, when we start with you.
Okay, sure. I guess what I would want people to know about me is I treat everybody with equal respect, and I think that's very important. You never know when you need to reach out to somebody to help you with something. And if you've treated that person with respect and kindness, the likelihood of them helping you in that situation increases dramatically. And then my advice for students, I would say, that if you're seeking a career in sports, and really would apply to any industry, is network. Just reach out to as many people in the industry as possible, to professionals in the industry, and just ask for their advice. The more people you know, the more people will be in a position to help you or to make you aware of an opportunity. And so that's really important. So I would say just treat getting a career. And somebody actually said this to me one time. He said, I treat looking for a job like a full-time job. So every day he went to work from, let's say, call it 9 to 5, and he did research, he networked, and he did his due diligence, and he actually ended up getting a really good job at DirecTV as a result of that. So, but I think networking is really the most important thing, because you really need other people to help you get to where you need to be.
Great, thank you, Blain. And Ryan, how about you?
I'm going to echo a lot of what Blain was just referring to. Respect, treat everyone the way you want to be treated with equality. I think that goes leaps and bounds. Our industry, whether it be on the sponsorship side, if it's inside a specific team, if it's inside a specific arena, those networks are extremely small and close knit. So if you are able to successfully network, to Blain's point, you create so many relationships that not only will you have now, but you'll have so many relationships that you can use later down the road if you are looking to make pivots in your career or looking for just new opportunity. I can't emphasize how much networking for younger college students or even young professionals like myself. I, to this day, continue to network. Of course, you know, one of the reasons why I personally wanted to be a part of this call, for even example, you need to continue to network and grow your book of business on the people side. If it's more so towards, let's say, college students, Ron, the one thing I would say in our sports industry is you don't need to, let's say, know everything about sports. You don't need to be the analytics guru. You don't need to be the ESPN home edition of, you know, a Stuart Scott or a Scott Van Pelt. You don't need to be, you know, a sports encyclopedia. If you have a passion for it, that's one thing, but you also need to be coachable and really see it through on your end. And I think that's something that I would say to a lot of college kids, and even my former self when I first started, is continue to be coachable. Don't think you know everything. Go into a lot of your early years in your career with the thought of, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to see where this can go by listening to understand, by acknowledging mistakes, by acknowledging early missteps. Because I think, as you see, and I'm sure we all can agree in our careers, you think more of the mistakes that you made as a younger professional that have shaped you to being who you are today. And I think that really can echo and speak volumes to a young professional trying to get into the sports industry. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Those mistakes will actually help you in the long run. But you still, on the forefront, need to be extremely coachable. And it can never hurt you to grow your network, especially in our industry. You never know when a simple phone call can then later on lead to a connection in a future job, or present you the opportunity to have a chance at a job just because of a simple connection, maybe via LinkedIn or at a sports conference.
Great advice.